Peace and love and light to you all. This is your girl, Stephanie Tough Love Brown, artist and activist. And there's a lot on my brain. But one thing I wanted to start doing, for those who don't know, let me just fully introduce myself. I am an activist and an artist, like I just mentioned. And I am an activist against HIV and AIDS. HIV. And my biggest thing as far as that is to make sure nobody falls into my shoes. And I mean that in the most political in the most political way, in a sense, but at the same time emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, I wouldn't want anybody to fall into my shoes. At 19, I was diagnosed and I felt like my life was over, but I knew that I needed to stay persistent and resilient. So I studied HIV as much as I could, just because I needed to get a hold on my life. And when I did that, I was looking up the who, where, who, what, where, when, what, and how. You know what? I think I'm gonna go live. I was looking up the who, where, when, knows, and hows. And I'm not gonna even edit this video probably. But I really wanted to know what was going on with my body. I really wanted to know what was going on with the system, and I wanted to know why it hadn't been solved yet. And at that time, it was 30 years. Now it's been about 35 years. So I stayed in school. I was at Fayetteville State University, and I stayed in school. When I was diagnosed, it was right after my freshman year in college. So it was a lot. It was a lot. But through that journey, I was introduced to spirituality and really what spirituality means, and taking out religion. Took out religion and really wanted to know who I was. And I took out religion just because it didn't feel right, and I wanted to erase everything that I knew. So I had to start there. Or that's where it started. It's not like I wanted to choose that. I didn't want to choose religion. That's the first thing. And I apologize, y'all. Fort Bragg is going off with their ammunition, and it's annoying. But I started getting to my spirituality. And when I asked the question, who am I? For any of those who know about the power of the tongue, when I asked the question, who am I? Immediately I started to find answers. Answers started rushing towards me. And I stayed isolated. Still am kind of isolated into myself, and just really stayed in my studies as far as that. Didn't watch TV, still don't watch TV. There's a TV on right now, but I'm not even watching it. And it's Golden Girls. That's why I just put it on. And plus I'm in a different room. I'm usually in my bedroom. Anyways, sidebar. From there, I just allowed my natural emotions just to ride. And 2009, I started working at a nonprofit because I wanted to start giving back some way, somehow. I went to this nonprofit where I did receive a second opinion, where I was still diagnosed when I went to this nonprofit. When I received the second opinion, it was still in 2006, and that's when I met the guy. May he rest in peace. I met the CEO of the nonprofit, and I went back to him some years later, and I asked him, how can I give back? And immediately he hires me right there on the spot, and he tells me I can start working in the jail, in the detention centers, and in the community, sharing my story. Never shared my story before then, so I was petrified. I was scared shitless. And I'm in these pods with inmates and some people I knew. So when I would share my story, I became the murderer in the room. When I shared my story, I was the one whose fingers were pointed at. I was the one in the room who was judged. It wasn't anybody else. But I stayed resilient in it. I knew that there was something just didn't seem right with my whole diagnosis. Something did not seem right at all. But I knew I just wanted to, I just knew I wanted to survive, because I didn't want to transition. I was still scared. I was fearful. But in the process of all that happening, I was learning more about myself. So in 2011, I graduated from Fayetteville State, and immediately after I graduated, I quit. I quit working with the nonprofit after 2 years. And a year after that, in 2012, was when MTV asked for young people to share their story in a documentary special that was going to come out for World AIDS Day. I sent in my email. They sent a reply back to the email, and we get the ball rolling. And eventually, I become a feature in a documentary with MTV's me and 2 other young people. So I did that, and while I was in New York, I was asked to be a part. No, actually, when I was in DC, the premiere of the documentary was December 1st. So November 28th, we were in DC, and I was asked to be a part of a panel at the White House in DC, November 28th. And after I was done with the panel, they asked me, they had another offer for me to be a part of a campaign with Alicia Keys called Empowered. You can look that up right now. And we were the pioneers for that campaign, Empowered. And that debuted March 13th, 2013. So it was this rush of just different things. And I started going to conferences, and I started going to these luncheons with doctors and scientists and other people who work in the field and nonprofits and outreach workers and even probably some volunteers out there. And I started being a keynote speaker. I became a keynote speaker in different areas and absolutely loved it. That's when I really realized that I love speaking. I love public speaking. That's the other side of my passion, besides creating, is public speaking and educating. I love educating. And eventually I started to realize that didn't seem right. I didn't like the feeling of being a puppet. I didn't like when I started to look at it in a broader view. You're treated as a superstar when it comes to campaigns and stuff, and when it comes to these campaigns, when I was a part of the campaigns, treated like a superstar. You know, from the time that I hit the door to the time that I come home, I don't have to worry about anything. Car service, hotels, food, per diem, all of that, and I still get a check. You know, when I come home and I'm by myself. And then I have more time to think. But all of what I was going through, even during the time with MTV and the White House, I was depressed. I was hella depressed. But my eye was open. My eye started opening to a lot of things, y'all. So, after 2014, I met Alicia Keys a few times. And a lot of people like to say, and even I like to remind myself, that we met each other. I ran into and met different celebrities and stuff, and people who are really down to earth. Alicia Keys is really down to earth. Russell Simmons, down to earth. Dr. Drew, down to earth. The whole MTV crew. Everybody that I met was down to earth. I just didn't like the system that I found myself in. I didn't like the fact that I had to read off cue cards and I couldn't really say what I wanted to say. But at the end of the day, I met some awesome people. I really did. But then I just had to pull back because I didn't feel like I didn't want to be a puppet anymore. It was my face that they were using to pull in more women like me who look like me to be put on meds. A lot of people wouldn't find anything wrong with that, but I did. I did. Because we have to remember that this country is still corrupt. So I started learning more about that, and I started working again in 2013. I started working again in 2013, and I started working with another nonprofit and became a facilitator for support groups and an educator. Same thing that I was doing, but not going inside of the jail. Or now it was more about having patients in front of me, people who I used to be in support groups with. Now I'm facilitating the support groups. And fell in love with that, but then I still did my research. I still stayed diligent in my studies. And 2016 is when my life changed. It changed it was a blessing and a curse in 2016. 2016, I really came to a light that me, when I realized my power and I realized that one creator makes no mistakes. The Most High, the Creator, whatever label you may give the Creator, makes no mistakes. So when it comes to our bodies are able to fight off anything. So in 2006, I started questioning. I've always questioned my specialist. Anytime I had a doctor's appointment, I questioned my specialist. I'm going to ask you questions. And if you blow up or you feel like you don't want to ask the questions, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to give tips on that and all of that. What I want to start doing now is to start, and I'm saying all of this, is to start having a series of videos to help encourage other people who are currently in that kind of situation. So I started finding out a lot of things. I started doing my research, and I stayed diligent, and things changed for me 2016. I questioned my specialist. I asked them a series of questions about how they get certain numbers. How is it that, how does she get into the field? I asked her personal questions. I asked her all of that. And at the end of that, I asked her one more question. The question was, given that the body is an amazing machine and it can cure itself of pretty much anything, do you feel as though it can cure itself of this virus? And she blatantly says no. And she walks slam out the doctor's office, out of the examination room. I said, okay, cool. I already expected that kind of reaction, though. But when she did answer the questions about how she got into the field, there was no compassion. No compassion whatsoever. None. Why she got into the field, what made her get into the field, and basically it was around money. No compassion. Very dry. And after that last question I asked her, I went to the lab, and I had my labs done. And the phlebotomist in there came around. It took her a while to come around. When she came around, she had 9 tubes. Usually I only get 2 to 3 tubes that are waiting for me to be filled with my blood for my labs. This day, after I asked the doctor all these questions and I challenged her, I have 9 tubes waiting for me. Knowing that I work with a phlebotomist, at that time I worked with a phlebotomist, I knew that the tubes were for specific reasons. And each color tube has a different color. Each tube has a different color top to it. So it lets you know what it's for, what you're testing. So I asked her, I said, can you go ahead and tell me what those tubes are for? She gives me this phony smile and says, no, she can't do that. Like, oh, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And I knew she lied to me. So that was my last time seeing him. So after that, it was a major jump into where I'm at now. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to do more videos. What I want to do is start encouraging people to empower themselves. One is letting go of the fear that we have of dying. We have to let go of that. If you're diagnosed with anything, let go of that. 2, and I'm going to talk about how to let go of that in another video. 2 is to really start taking control of your life. And I'll share a video on that as well. But that's what I had to come to terms with. That's what I had to start doing for myself, and that's why I'm still standing here. And that's where my activism is at. My activism is going around and telling you to put on condoms and to take meds. No, I'm not telling you that. Because it starts here. Once the mind is corrupted, the body follows. So my objective is to get to here first, your mind first, before you put yourself in a predicament to take meds. Because the meds are still toxic. I don't care what anybody says. The HIV medication is still toxic. What they call antiretroviral medication is still toxic. They even still have the commercials still running for HIV medication to say that it is toxic and it can cause kidney damage. And I have been speaking on that for a while. Nobody wanted to hear me. No one. Because you know why? I was taking the meds. My body was breaking down taking the medication. So that's what I speak on. So I'll be creating more videos. I just really want to share this with you all and share more about myself and where my activism is at. And a lot of it is just done in the background. You're not going to see a lot of videos on it, but you will see more this year around the activism. And now it's time to smash the two together, my creative abilities and my activism together. And that is the goal for 2019. So with that being said, I would love for you to join me on this journey. I would love to keep sharing and empowering other women and other men, anybody who's going through the same thing. I absolutely love holding support groups. So this is my way of holding a support group. You know, circumstances right now are not allowing me too much to hold a support group because it's about central locations and everything, and I'm just finding a location. But I wanted to introduce myself. I wanted you to hear more about my story. If there are any questions, by all means, you can inbox me. You can email me at tuphlove1@gmail.com. That's toughlove1@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, Stephanie Tough Love Brown, TUPHLOVE, and you can find me on Instagram. But yeah, more videos coming soon. Thank you for watching this if you made it all the way through. I'll be sure to start adding stuff. You know, this is my first time doing this whole YouTube thing, so I'm looking forward to it. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.